All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this. This is the reverse 1031 exchange strategy. It's how affluent investors secure pre construction opportunities without giving up cash flow. This is a very unique strategy to Orange Beach, and we'll go through that shortly. Who's this for? So, you own income property. So, maybe you've got a condo or a beachfront property, anything that's income property, and you see what's happening in the market. Interest rates are about to go down. You're seeing the compressed demand, and you're thinking, hey, in the next 3 years might be a really good time to sell and lock in some of my gains. And you want to trade up to Caribe Seaside, which will be the nicest beach condo in Orange Beach with the rooftop pool bar, the service, the wraparound lazy river, the large 3 and 5 bedrooms. But you don't want to miss out on the pre-construction pricing. Now, pre-construction pricing is why you buy right now. For example, the one that sold out literally 5 doors down, Perdido South, that started at I want to say a 700 the $784 a square foot mark. They're now selling for $1,087 a square foot. That's a 40%, as a plus 40% increase in the value. And now is the perfect time during pre-construction to lock in that early discounted value as the price grows. In Orange Beach, it's grown by about 10% a year for the last 10 to 20 years. So you don't want to miss out on that, but you also don't want to lose the cash flow on your current rental property while it's being built. So there's a certain period of time that's going to be built, and you don't want to sell and give up that cash flow. And also, you don't want to give up the appreciation that it's going to have for the next couple of years because things will appreciate in the next couple of years. You want to avoid capital gains tax when you sell it later. So, who is here? We have myself, Ryan Ank, the co-developer with Larry Wireman on this project. We have Jewel Herbert, reverse 1031 exchange expert, and John Alvarado, who is our head of sales. All right, so I'll run through this quickly before handing it off to Jewel. Here's the upgrade dilemma. Most beachfront owners face three challenges. You want to upgrade, you don't want to sell yet, you don't want to lose your rental income, and traditional 1031 exchange says you sell first, you buy within 180 days, and that just simply doesn't work with pre-construction. Jewel architected a way to do that with an option contract, the way it's been done in Orange Beach for the past 20, 30 years. The reality, what usually happens is because of this limitation, many buyers, they miss out on that pre-construction pricing that we went over earlier. They sell too early, or they sit in cash, or they lose income, or they do nothing. So the opportunity and what smart investors do is instead of selling first, they are securing CREEB now while keeping their current income property. This is called a reverse 1031 exchange, also called an option and park strategy. What this allows you to do is you are able to lock in pre-construction pricing now, keep collecting rent on the current property that you have, and then you can wait to sell until the timing is ideal towards the end of the construction of the CREEB development. You can defer your capital gains, which could be pretty large in these next couple of years. And this is uniquely done in Orange Beach with attorney Jewel Herbert through a combination of an option contract and a reverse 1031 exchange. This is how it's been done through all the Phoenixes there in Orange Beach. For example, Sarah owns a $1 million rental condo. She wants CREEB but doesn't want to sell. So she locks in CREEB today, keeps collecting $5,000 a month in rent. The property appreciates, sells when CREEB nears completion, exchanges into CREEB at CREEB's appreciated value. And the result is she kept her income. She got the appreciation on the new asset. She captured that, and she got her capital gains deferred. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jewel. Jewel?
Yes, a lot of people are familiar with reverse 1031 exchanges that were officially recognized in 2000 by the IRS. And just some background, in the first Trump tax bill that was passed in 2016, the Congress, as part of the compromise of doing the various things that were done, did away with 1031 exchanges for anything other than real property. And so for a period of time after that bill was passed, the question was out there as to what was real property. And in December of 2019, after the election in 2019, they came out with a revenue procedure that said that an option contract is considered real property for the purposes of a 1031 exchange. So what that does is it gives you two real properties in a pre-construction situation that you can exchange into. One is an option contract, which is real property that can be your replacement property. And then the second one would be the condominium as completed as real property itself. And this gives a person such as yourself that's interested in doing a 1031 the opportunity to lock in a unit by, in effect, loaning a third party the funds to enter to an option contract under an agreement in which that entity holds the contract on your behalf on an agreement to assign it to you in order to become the replacement property in a 1031 exchange. And by doing so, your standard 180-day rule doesn't apply because you haven't sold anything and you haven't received anything. And so I guess we're ready for the next slide. So the idea is this acquisition, how it is, or this structure must be put together before you enter into an agreement with the developer. So if you're in the context of negotiating with this developer, then before you agree to anything, and you're considering doing a 1031, you need to bring in a QI, a qualified intermediary, and me if you want, to structure based on what your situation is and what your timing is, a 1031 exchange that will pass muster under the. If you go ahead and enter into an option contract directly with the developer, then that avenue is out and you can't do a 1031 unless you're willing to time your exchange at the very end and hope that you can complete it with the 180 days. So that's the important of this slide. So the next slide, Ryan, would be, as I said, it allows strategic positioning, timing flexibility, exchange eligibility. My experience is that everyone has a different thing. The opportunity to sell what you're selling varies. So that can be a timing device that you need to discuss. And then the time for the actual completion of the unit is several years out, and you don't know at this time exactly when that's going to be. So the option contract as a replacement property device is the key to this thing. And then it can either be done now, and then you go ahead and put your property on the market and you exchange into it. It can be done in ways where we can extend the option contract and amend it such that the 180-day limitation on reverse exchanges that's set out in the revenue ruling 2000-37 can still be complied with. On the other hand, you can have an entity hold the option contract for several years outside of the safe harbor and then close into the condo itself eventually. And so that 180-day limitation doesn't apply. Depending on an individual situation, you have to lay it out, and then we can decide on 1, 2, or 3 different ways to structure it as a reverse exchange. So each one of these things is different, but it's in almost every case, it's doable one way or the other. The question, and this is something you have to negotiate with the dealer, is how much of the total purchase price do you have to in fact lend to the exchange accommodation title holder, which is the entity that would be holding the option contract under an agreement with you in order to get the price that you want. Obviously, if you do an immediate reverse exchange where you park the contract, you immediately put your property on sale, you're going to get a better price than if you delay your contract closer and closer to the finishing date, because the developer is not want to give up all of the value that's being gained during the construction period the cost of construction, which is the purpose of these transactions, is to in effect borrow from the ultimate buyer the money that's used to build the building and cut out the banking system. So Ryan has pretty much explained the process. You go ahead and lock in the price. You continue to rent out your current property for the period of time that you don't sell it. And then you set up your 1031 and you exchange into this option contract that's being held for you by a qualified intermediary, or what's also called as an exchange accommodation title holder.
And just to reinforce that, you are a qualified intermediary and they could use you for that service.
Correct. Our firm has a qualified intermediary called Jubilee 1031 Services, and we are active across the country in that capacity. But we have done probably 20 or so Phoenix condominium constructions in this area in various ways of using pre-construction funds. But when the 2016 legislation passed, even though it didn't exactly set out the option contract as a possibility, we jumped the gun and started using that concept because it was something that was being discussed in the industry. And we were vindicated when the final rules came out in December of 2020 saying, yes, you can do this. And we're happy when the Biden people took over. We were afraid they were going to go back in and undo all that. They did not. And so that now has been in effect for over 10 years.
Yeah, which is excellent. Which it really makes it a very unique opportunity where you can accomplish all those goals at the same time. You can keep your income on your current property. You can keep the appreciation on your current property while locking in the pre-construction discounts and the appreciation through the pre-construction pricing. It gives you the most options and doesn't give you that pressure cooker of 180 days either, because it's structured as an option. It's uniquely structured as an option. So at this point, I know that there's a number of questions. So I got a question from Greg Gidry. He says, you keep mentioning Orange Beach properties. I'm assuming the owner's current property could be anywhere. Is that right?
Yes, as long as in the continental United States or its territories, that qualifies for 1031 treatment.
Very good. And guys, especially those that entered late, I think we started with 20 and now we've got over 50. But if you entered late, you could go into the chat and you can ask your questions there for Jewel. The next question, is there a time limit if you use a QI for the option contract?
There's the regs are not clear as to whether or not the option contract in the hands of a third party is real property or whether that's a contractual right. It's real property in the context of replacement property in an exchange. So I've taken the position that the 180-day safe harbor rule doesn't apply until you've actually sold your relinquished property. That's the property you now own. And then you would have 180 days to complete whatever agreement you have with the developer towards funding the option contract or actually purchasing the unit itself. If you've entered into an option contract to tie down the land and the purchase price, then wait to what you are sure is 6 months or 180 days from the closing date on your property and close then. The safe, that's, I wouldn't call that pushing the envelope, but that has some risk. If you can come in under the safe harbor and acquire the option contract, have the intermediary hold the option contract, and then that gives you 6 months to sell your relinquished property and have the option contract transferred to you as replacement property, and that actually completes your exchange, and that's done within the 6 month period.
So but is the 6 months the longest? Is the safe harbor option the only option that provides that relief, or is there something beyond 6 months? What I'm getting at, Jewel, is it seems like structuring with a developer on the front end can be fairly certain, but the timing of your sold property for good value may take longer than you expect. That's quite uncertain. So how do you deal with that uncertainty on the back end What's the best, how much flexibility do you really have to ensure that you're getting good value and you're not forced to sell at a discount because of some arbitrary deadline?
The only real deadline is the completion date of the unit itself. So if you have to closely read the 2000-37 revenue procedure, in which it sets out a reverse exchange possibility, and then at the very end it says we don't express an opinion one way or the other on reverse exchange parking arrangements that are not completed within the 180 days. And if you couple that with the position that the option contract in the hands of a third party is not replacement property until it's actually been transferred to the taxpayer, then you could hold the intermediary could hold the option contract all the way up to the closing date, and then allow the buyer to exchange into the unit itself. The easiest way to explain this is to go case by case as to what a particular individual's situation is and say, if it were me, this is how I would structure it. And there's usually a way to do it that can satisfy nobody knows the future. You may wait too long and prices fall and you end up with you think it's going to appreciate and it doesn't. So those are just calls you have to make along the way, but the structuring can be done.
Hey, Ryan, I got a question. Can you tell me, and I'm not holding you to it, obviously, a lot of factors come into this, projected completion date, number one, and two, again, and we don't have to go into specific units, but the 3-bedroom and 5-bedroom pre-construction prices as of today.
Appreciate you not holding me to anything.
Yep.
So from the start of it, it's 30 to 36 months. We're about 6 months in. It's a little under 30 at this point. We do have the first pile cap went in yesterday. We're pouring the foundation out there right now, and we're soon to apply for the vertical permit. So it's moving along at a nice pace. I think the frame of your question, you understand that there's weather elements. There's
Absolutely.
Construction.
And the other thing was, the reason I asked that is, I think it goes with Greg's somewhat piggyback off of his question. If we waited and we tried to do 6 months out, so let's say that 24 months we're 24 months in the future now, 6 months out based on these numbers, are you saying, and this goes also back to Jewel, that at the 6-month time frame, can I then do the exchange and give 6 months to sell the unit that I currently own? And that way the timing, it could happen where I could sell the unit in a month or I could sell it in 6 months. But hopefully within the 6-month time frame, it's about the same time to close on the new place and we move in. Can this 1031 be done that way?
Yeah, my understanding is yes. And if it were me, if I was being ultra conservative, I'd time it to list
Yes.
the current property in May before you get certificate of occupancy on this building.
Yeah, because if I don't rent it out and I own it outright, we want to enjoy it while this one's being built.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if you've done a reverse into a option agreement, you can always do another reverse at the other end. Let's say that assuming you've got the funds to do it, is if you've got a contract for sale and now all of a sudden you've got to close on Caribe Seaside because it's finished and your contract calls you to come to closing, you can then park that. So you could, if you had to, you could park your actual condominium real property and with a sublease where you actually have occupancy of it and the use of it prior to your selling your relinquished property. And that would be more like a standard 1031 reverse, where you acquire your relinquished property first. And there the safe harbor is more obvious, is you would have 6 months from acquiring the Seaside unit to sell your relinquished property.
And Thank you, Jewel. And one last thing, Ron, and I'll be quiet here, but, or two things. One, the price that I need in terms of what the price is as of today. And then on a, God forbid, worst case scenario, and this would goes with the contract examination. Let's say something happens and for whatever reason, you guys decide something's gone wrong and we can't continue the construction, but we've already gone into an agreement contract wise. How would that work?
If you didn't get a condo, we're obligated to return your capital. That's the
Okay.
that's the legal obligation. But we're Servio Capital. We've executed almost $1 billion in transactions. Currently have about 400 million in assets under management, and we've got several funds to tap into to complete the project if we need to.
And then can you just say the pricing, please?
Yeah, I'll let John cover that because he covers that every day.
Sure. The 3 bedrooms start at 1,976,950, so at $950 a square foot, and go up to the penthouse levels, which are at 1,000 a square foot.
So you said 1,976,50.
1,976,950.
Okay.
Yep. And you can get with John on specific pricing.
Yeah.
What Jewel was alluding to earlier is that the way it has been done previously is you had with other developers, you put $50,000 to mark to reserve your spot, and then you had 90 days to come up with the entire balance. Right now, at this phase of the development, you have that option, and it'll be cheaper for you if you execute that option. There's incentives for you to execute that option. But we also have a 40-30-30 plan, which is 40% right now, 30% at the vertical permit, and the remaining 30% at the MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing permit.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think there was one more question that you had, Greg, about the cost of the QI services. And you can unmute yourself, by the way.
Yeah, no, and I fully expect it to be tied to the complexity of what you're trying to do, but maybe Jewel could just help us understand it. Is it percent of value? Is it just hourly paid? What are we talking about here?
You talking about fees?
Yeah.
Not enough. It's a real simple one is several $1,000s. If we end up having to do a multiple option contract where you're exercising an option to enter, in other words, if we need to expand the 180 days over 2 or 3 year period, that we're talking about probably $8,000 to $10,000 in legal fees.
That's a great attorney's response, by the way, Jewel, the whole not enough thing. Okay, guys, I don't see any more questions in the chat. If you do have a question, you're more than welcome to unmute. Jewel is available for consultation. The first step will be to talk with John Alvarado, who's on this call.
Yes.
You go to CaribeSeaside.com, and then you could set up an appointment with him. He can connect you with Jewel. Or Jewel, do you want to just give everybody a good way to contact you if they want to contact you directly?
Yes, 251-968-4764. And I'd be happy to talk to you or return your call and walk through your specific situation with no upfront money.
Got a brief question.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
I'm from Pensacola Beach. With respect to converting to personal use after 3 out of 5 years of investment property, does this apply to the option property when you execute the option or after the building is complete? Or what's the soonest you could convert to personal use?
Obviously, you're not going to be using the option contract for personal use, but and it's the same as the rules on depreciation. You can't consider the property subject to personal use until you've begun depreciating it. You can't depreciate property until it comes into service. So even though you have an option contract and it's replacement property and it's considered real property for the purposes of 1031, it's not real property for the purpose of giving you any credit and there's no bright line rule anyway on when you can start making partial personal use of income producing property. In the period of time that you're down there taking care of it, mopping the floors, rearranging the furniture, and those sorts of things don't count anyway. The personal use issue only comes into play after the property is put into use as income producing property.
To add a little color to that, we've got a lot of people that use something called a EQRP, where it gives them checkbook control over their IRA, their retirement accounts, without getting taxed on them. And the way that the way that EQRP advises clients is they say it's very simple to use it for personal use. You just basically pay yourself rent. It's rent you pay yourself. And if you're going to rent it to somebody, then, it's still rental property. And so I know ways that other people have taken it down. I don't know if that answers your question or if that even was your question, but I just wanted to mention that. All right. Look, guys, appreciate it. Hope this was helpful to you. I hope you're able to utilize this strategy in your future, save yourself a lot of money and lock in appreciation gains and income. Appreciate you spending your time. So thank you.